Hello, everybody. Kyle here. I am going to talk about the fifth Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, that just released tonight. And I have to say, I had a I had a pretty good time with this film. I wasn't expecting that much based on the reviews going in, and I know it was one of the most anticipated films of the year for many folks. Basically, the way my history goes is like I grew up with Indiana Jones, like the image of Indiana Jones, the legacy of Indiana Jones was, something that you could not escape in your childhood. And I saw the films, and I remember when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out, that was a big deal because like that was going to be my generation's Indiana Jones film, the one that, especially being around 9 years old at the time, that would have been the film that would really set the ball running for kids my age and for you know the next generation of Indiana Jones fans. Unfortunately, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not very good, and I think a number of kids in my generation basically fell out of the Indiana Jones spell. I know a number of friends of mine that are into Indiana Jones and have always been, but I think a number of them even will admit that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull just didn't hit that sweet spot. So I remember I was looking forward to this film, and I was really hoping that this film would kind of end off the franchise on a high note and not the way Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ended off. I would say it is better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Basically, the plot of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny centers around Indy looking for this missing dial that could change the future of the world, without giving any spoilers. And he has to embark on this journey and adventure with Helena Shaw, who is the goddaughter of his and the daughter of an old colleague. Helena Shaw is played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I love. I mean, she is just a genius. She was so. I mean, Fleabag is an amazing show. Highly recommend if you haven't watched already. And I just couldn't wait to see her in this. And she doesn't disappoint. She is just as good as she is in all the other performances I've seen her give. But what's really cool about, I think, this movie is how I think it decides to look at Indiana Jones in this perspective of not just him being older, but him living a life that essentially he might not be so proud of. Like, he is in this film at the end of his time as a professor, he's going to retire. His family, what you'll find out in the film, is not what you would expect his family life would be based off of the ending of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ends on this happy note, and that's not necessarily what happens to his life after that. And you also get to see how, like, some of the actions of his past kind of affect him to this day, especially how he dealt with his goddaughter, Helena. And I think that was a really interesting aspect of the film because you're now dealing with Harrison Ford, um, who is playing Indiana Jones for the last time, but making this character a fully realized character that isn't just, as some would maybe guess, an old man. And he very much is more than just being a man that is no longer the same man he was in the original films. He has the same, characteristics, but at the same time he's evolved, and that's what really makes for a really rich character. And Harrison Ford, he still's got it. Like, he can still fight, he can still crack that whip, he can still punch, and the action sequences, I will say, are still believable given that he's doing this. I think what's funny to me is that in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, one of the most laughably nonsensical sequences in the movie is when all of these um, characters are in this truck as it falls off multiple waterfalls, and they just walk it off like nothing is wrong. Where here, you can see Indy actually taking the punches, taking the beatings, and he is, he's still able to fight, but he isn't just, this unstoppable superhero like Dominic Toretto is in the Fast and Furious films. I think that Mads Mikkelsen is a wonderful antagonist. He is one of the lead Nazis that's after this dial, and I think he's better than Kate Blanchett's Irina Spalko in Crystal Skull. I just found that character to be a little bit one-dimensional and also not as interesting as I think the other villains, especially if you look at um, Elsa from Last Crusade. A number of the other villains, like even Belloc, like, I don't know, Irina wasn't quite that. And here I think there's a little bit more to Mads Mikkelsen's character, and especially his motivation is, I think, really fascinating. You have a number of other supporting characters, one of them being Boyd Holbrook, who I think is a fabulous actor. He plays like the henchman. He's good in the film. I do wish we got a little bit more of him. I wish there was a sequence, I feel like, where he could have maybe fought another character. Maybe him fighting Helena would have been fun. And then I will say some of my criticisms to the film are due to the fact that I think some of the supporting characters are kind of wasted in this film. One of them is the character of Mason, and she is this CIA black character in the film that I don't really think, I don't know, was done justice. It feels weird to me that, like, the way that they handle her character, especially being the only black character in the film, I wish they would have done more with her, and some of what they do feels a little bit disrespectful. Like, I feel like the character could have done even more in the film, and they don't really do as much with her, especially by the second act of the film, shall we say. And then there's another character in the film who I think that she would have been best switching places with, which is this child that I really think, for the most part, feels completely unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. At the end of the third act, he actually has something to do, but most of the time I was saying to myself, this feels like Short Round 2.0. It doesn't feel like someone that I could even believe taking part in this mission nor caring about. If they put Mason in this character's role with her helping Helena and Indy on their adventure, I think that would have done more justice to Mason's character, and I think it would have been even more interesting to watch than to watch a little kid with Helena and Indy, where it feels like, once again, we're retreading the same ground we did with Temple of Doom. That being said, I do think that it was a good thing that film doesn't really copy what's been done before. There was a worry that this movie would kind of just look at, say, Raiders of the Lost Ark and try and match that film beat for beat. And it doesn't. It does not do that, and I'm really glad it doesn't, because there are moments in the film that, like, there's an underwater sequence we've never seen really in an Indiana Jones film before. And there's another sequence in the film in Morocco, one of my favorite sequences, where they're basically on these things called, like, rickshaws, and they're chasing Mads Mikkelsen's character, and it's energetic, it's really fun. Mangold does a great job directing that sequence. And then I meant to say, Antonio Banderas is in this movie. Absolutely wasted. I'm so annoyed that after seeing Uncharted, where they wasted Antonio Banderas, I see once again another Indiana Jones-like movie, which happens to be an Indiana Jones movie, waste him again. And it's like, why even cast Antonio, the caliber of an actor that Antonio Banderas is, if you're going to give him that little to do? If I think he probably has like 4 lines of dialogue in the entire, um, you know, film, which is ridiculous. Um, yeah, and also there's a de-aging moment in the film in the beginning with them de-aging Harrison Ford. And it looks pretty good. In fact, at times it looks like the best they've ever de-aged an actor. However, they utilize this de-aged version in a lot of action sequences. And I think that is where it starts to show. Like, the body proportions don't look right at times. And it's very hard to feature a de-aged character and have it be acting and fighting in such a convincing manner. But I think for the most part, I did enjoy what I saw, and it didn't feel to me like what they were doing was a gimmick. Unlike when you watch The Flash and the de aging they do in that film feels like a total gimmick. Here, it services the story. He has to be de aged for it to work. Some things like Crystal Skull, it manages to feel a little bit ridiculous. One character seemingly dies, and then that character returns, and you're like, how did that character return? Because when they died, it seemed like they definitely died. um, and then I will say that, without giving any spoilers, they do address the absence of Mutt Williams. And I actually really like what they did with this, because by them addressing Mutt Williams in this film, it actually adds to Indy's character arc in the film. And it's not just a throwaway line like, oh, he went to college. Like, they could have said that, not to say he does in the film. I'm not going to say anything, but they don't throw away this character. That even though some people might not like the character, I do like that the film, I think, respects the character enough to at least give their absence an important moment in the film. And that's the one thing I have to say about the Indiana Jones franchise as a whole, is that it respects what has come before, and it has never been like, oh, we are embarrassed of this movie. Everything is referenced. In fact, this film references all 4 of the prior Indiana Jones movies. John Williams' score is fantastic. I also really love that the way the credits are set up, they are set up unlike any of the other credits before, which basically signaled the end of this series, or at least the end of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. And I just have to say, like, you have to be grateful for Harrison Ford coming back, because he didn't have to do this. He's Harrison Ford. He's had enough movies, he's had enough jobs, and he gets offers probably every day to be in a film. But the fact that he came back to play this character and give him like a proper send-off is just very admirable, and it shows you that, yes, he could have been offered millions of dollars. But I will say that what the final result of this film is that this is a man that has now made 5 Indiana Jones films in a period of 40 years. And that's not something that many people have done. And we should be really grateful. And I'm really grateful that I was fortunate enough to live in an era where my generation got 2 Indiana Jones films that we could see in theaters. And it will be very sad to see, a new generation the next decade or so that won't have an Indiana Jones film with Harrison Ford to see. But it's also good to know that, like the way this movie approaches things, I think that we will see, there's always a time for a new hero to come in, and that new hero might be, the next Indiana Jones. It won't be Indiana Jones, but we should never be hung on to just one character. We should always be willing to accept the end of a character and accept the fact that, it's the end of an era. And that's something that Indy has to come to terms with in this film, that his life is nearing its end, but that doesn't mean that, you know, we should just give up. We should always continue to strive for doing the next right thing, the next best thing. I think I've said most of my thoughts. I think, if anything, it is a little bit too long. The plot at times is messy. I think the third act is where it gets its most messiest, but I did I did end up having a good time by the end of it. And I think, honestly, that's what this movie is aimed for. It's intended to provide a sense of escape and provide a sense of just fun watching it. And believe me, there are moments in this film, like the Morocco sequence, the sequence on horseback with Indy, that really are fun. And um, I'm just happy we got one more Indiana Jones movie, and I really hope that, I think people will be unhappy with this film. I think that that is just inevitable when it comes to such a major franchise, but I really hope that people don't, just really poo poo on Harrison Ford and James Mangold and all of them, because I think they still tried their best. And it's the fact that they came back that I think, the fact that they came back that I think matters the most. So, yeah, that's my review of Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny. I would rank it probably fourth in my favorite Indiana Jones movies. I rank The Last Crusade number one, Temple of Doom number two, Raiders, this, and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So what did you think of Dial of Destiny? Did you love it? Let me know in the comments below, and have a great day, guys. Take care. Bye.